Happy Tuesday to you, everyone. I want to finish talking to you today about the patch model. If you own multiple dogs in your household, the patch model can really affect how they feel about living together, that living arrangement, compatibility. Would I move on if I were given the opportunity if I were one of your dogs? So let's talk about it. But in review of yesterday, just real quick, what is the patch model? Scientists have studied animals for many, many years, and we continue to do so. And one of the things that's at the forefront of their minds is the very thing that's at the forefront of most of our animals' mind. And that is the long-term net energy intake. In other words, the rate of energy intake. How much does it take for me to get something to eat? Cost versus benefit. What am I going to eat? When am I going to eat? And how am I going to get it to eat? All of that is always at the forefront of an animal's consciousness. Always. Always got to be thinking about food, more food. So I've always even mentioned in some of our videos that a lot of our relationship with our dogs is a gastronomic relationship, whether we like it or not. It's driven by food. And if you want to find that out, quit feeding your dog and see what happens. If they're given access to the world out there, unfettered access, they're more likely going to leave you as soon as things start getting a little rough and I start getting a little bit hungry. So that taken into account, let's talk about the patch model. The patch model is when scientists studied the behavior of predators, they learned that within a habitat, and again, I'm going to just go back and quick review here. Let's take, for example, like a wolf's territory. Well, within that territory, within it, are patches. Because why are there, and what are these patches? These patches are an aggregate of prey. They can be a bunch of mice, they can be a bunch of rabbits, they can be a bunch of deer hanging around, a migrating herd of caribou that decided we're going to camp out here for a while. It's prey. And even though prey is distributed throughout the environment, they have found that for reasons typically due to terrain, due to possible safety in numbers. Again, if I'm one rabbit out of 100, then that means that there's 200 eyeballs on predators. So it kind of behooves me to live within that group, because if you see a predator, you sound the alarm, I'm out of here. So it increases my personal fitness and my rate of survival. So animals are typically found in these little patches here. And I'm going to kind of draw up here so where you guys can see little patches here in the habitat. And so wolves will travel around and check out that patch there and kind of hang out with that patch. Other predators will go there and hang out with that patch, and then they'll move on. And that became a big question, because what they observed was animals actually moving on before the patch had been exploited to a point in which there just really wasn't anything to eat there anymore. So why did they move on? Why would you move from one patch? Hey, and they even took into account that the animal understood that there's a travel cost involved with this. There's a time cost involved with this. There's a risk in which I could encounter danger along the way. Why would I leave a very profitable patch? Why would I do that? So that became the focus point. That became one of the focus points of the patch model. Now, I'm going to pull that whole question into dogs. So again, with a dog, what would be a patch? What would be a habitat that would contain a patch, meaning food, a lot of food? Of course, that's going to be a thing called a house. Okay, that's my house right there. And in my house, there are a patch or two in there, meaning there's food in there. There's food. It's a habitat with food, and I'm going to exploit this patch. So one of the things that they found out was that there's in group living, when group living animals exploited a patch, conditions were created from the presence of other members of that group that created the need for an individual to leave that pack. In our dogs, whether we like it or not, are forced into group living. So when you own one or two dogs, you go out and gather another dog and maybe even another dog, and all of a sudden you have 4 dogs living together, you force them into group living. So group living has its advantages and it has its cost. And one of these exploitations, one of these costs that they have is the exploitation of patches. in many cases, you have a wolf who's discovered this patch and is exploiting it on its own. But then other wolves find out about it and they go, hey, you know what the dude just found over there? Did you know last week? Oh, Mike, he found this great patch. I found out that Mike not only found it, but he's been keeping it from us. So they all show up. And next thing you know, instead of just one wolf getting to take advantage of all these rabbits out there by themselves, and by the way, wolves do hunt quite often by themselves. Actually, when you study statistically, they actually hunt more by themselves than they do as a group. Group hunting is typically reserved for the wintertime when the small animals found in these patches are very scarce. So now all of a sudden, I got to go hunt something big. And many times, even in that case, it's one big animal going out on a hunt and a bunch of little animals saying, well, that dude's pretty successful. So if we just tag along with him, more than likely he's going to kill something and we're going to get something to eat because he can't eat it all. So all that being said, I'm out here hunting in this patch by myself and all of a sudden you show up. And you, and you, and you, and all of you show up. So the next thing you know, you have what's known as the Scramble Effect. The Scramble Effect, where animals are scrambling around, hunting on random, and all of a sudden, wow, that's it. It has a long-term effect on the reduction of prey. As you can imagine, you got 10 wolves, they're going to consume 10 times as much as a single wolf. And the rate of success is going to be exponentially greater. You got more hunters, more predators, forcing animals to do things that they wouldn't normally do, forcing them out into the open and so on and so forth. So wow, all of a sudden that patch can be extremely exploited. But then along comes another condition, and this is the condition that causes us concern when we own more than one dog. And that condition is known as interference effect. Interference. So again, here I am, I'm out here minding my own business. I'm out here just reaping the bounty, baby. I'm telling you what, I am getting one rabbit after another. Feeling pretty good about it. Yeah, I may be old wolf number 7 on the old totem pole, but man, I've been eating good lately. Yeah, until wolf number 1 or wolf number 2 shows up. So now all of a sudden some socially dominant animal arrives in my patch. And that socially dominant animal can cause me, a subordinate, to spend more time on guard watching them so they don't attack me than what I spend hunting for animals. In other words, I'm more worried about that wolf than I am about trying to get something to eat. I'm horribly distracted. And plus, if it's a big, socially dominant animal, its aggression directed towards me, growling at me all the time, forcing me away, trying to drive me out of the darn patch, could actually set an alarm off for all the prey that's there. So they go, whoa, now there's 2 wolves and one of them is pitching an ever-loving fit. We need to get the heck out of here. So they disperse and now they're gone. And now he scared off everyone. So what was a patch is now an empty patch. A once full patch was now empty because you showed up here running your darn big mouth and trying to make me obey you and not get anything to eat. That's called interference effect. It's powerful. It's powerful. So again, here we go. I'm living in this patch. I'm hunting in this patch. I'm one of multiple dogs. But within the dogs, there's a very socially dominant dog that is running what's called the interference effect on me. Instead of me paying attention to my eating and my getting treats and my getting time with the owner, in other words, all of these valuable resources, I spend the vast majority of my time on guard, on alert, watching for you, hoping you don't attack me. My stress response is mobilized nonstop, pathologically. I'm always up in the arousal column because this happens to be a patch, a bountiful patch. Meals show up here twice a day. But the problem is you come over here and eat mine. You run me off of mine. And even if there's some furless biped over here standing between us, you keep giving me the eye. And I'm so worried about you, my stress response is mobilized. And when the stress response is mobilized, you naturally inhibit the storage of energy. Yeah, remember that thing got put in us millions of years ago to do a couple things. Make sure you can get away from something that's trying to eat you. Make sure you can catch something that you need to eat. So it's not a handy time to be digesting food. Not a handy time to be stopping at the drive-thru window and getting a snack. So my stress response is mobilized because you over there are running interference here in this patch that happens to be in this house. And therefore, I'm not storing energy. And my immune system is now compromised. My mental health is compromised. My physical well-being is compromised because I'm constantly under the assault of being interfered with by you. The interference effect. Not so much the scramble effect. That comes into play when you walk over here and eat my food bowl because that furless biped walked out of the room. Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about. This is how you connect something called the patch model, in which we study the behavior of animals and we scratch our heads and go, why would you leave a bountiful patch? When at the end of the day, it's all about the long-term net rate of energy intake. What would drive you away from that? And it's called a socially dominant animal that's there for competitive reasons. It's driving me away. It wants the whole darn thing for itself. So when that was studied by behaviorists, biologists, you name it, they found that most individuals that were subjected to the interference effect and couldn't get away from it. The patch wasn't big enough to just say, I'll just go eat over here. They left. And it's known as a dispersion economy, where they disperse, the dispersive effect. You know, it just became one of those where, competition, whether it's through exploitation, like the scramble effect, or interference, it will reduce to some individuals the value of the patch. It'll reduce it. And that will create a dispersive effect on the individual. Nature many times uses dispersive effect, dispersing, to blunt aggression. I don't need these two big males, these two big females having combat. If I do, that's probably a fatality. So one of you just needs to leave. Well, the problem is, it's hard to leave when you're in a makeshift zoo. Yeah, there are no bars or chain link or acrylic panels. Just sheetrock glass and a wooden door and an outer perimeter fence. I can't disperse. So what do you do in a situation like that? So many times I do advise disperse. There is a time and there's a place to find a new home for one of your dogs. Been there, lived it, advise it all the time. And those who care more about their pet's well-being than their own emotional well-being, well, park emotions to the side. Disperse those emotions and look at it like a scientist and study it like the patch model. So what you thought yesterday was, what the heck? Has Bryan lost something underneath that patch up here on top of his head? What does that have to do with my dogs? You learned a long time ago, we cannot separate behavior from biology. If we do so, it's at our peril and our dogs. This instinct still runs rampant in our dogs. It's evidenced every single day by their actions. You just got to know what to look for. It's there. The patch model is still there. That's the biggest darn patch in the whole wide world to your dog, the most important patch in the whole wide world to your dog. The invincible center, as Edward O. Wilson would describe it. It's got food happening every single day, but something makes me want to go away. And it's you. That socially dominant animal over there that's pushing me down. Every time I go up to get a pet by that human, that's it. I'm attacked. Every time I try to pick up a treat, I'm attacked. Every time I even look in your direction and we happen to be anywhere near food or anywhere where food is prepared or where food is stored, I'm attacked. And if you weren't there, human owner, I'd leave. So that's the question we have to always ask ourselves. If you were not present and the door was wide open, would all your dogs stay or would some of them leave? That's a hard question. Comes with an even harder answer. But again, if we're about lowering our blood pressure, which comes with giving more than receiving, then we'll ask that question. And we'll be on guard for that animal who is a subordinate and under the interference effect. And we'll do right by our dogs and maybe disperse one of them. But if you can't get it done, you tried, you can't find a home for the dog, it's got to stay there. Then here's a couple things I'm going to have you do. Number one, feed them separately. Now, when I say separately, I mean completely separately. One in the house, one out of the house, one in the laundry room with the door shut, one in the bedroom with the door shut. I mean it. They are not separated by mere distance. They're separated by senses. They cannot see one another when they eat. They can hear. They know the other animal is present nearby, but they're not under the effects, the immediate effects of that other animal. Put your dog up so it can eat. The one who's very dominant, if it wants to attack another animal over food, trust me, it'll be finished eating within seconds. But you cannot allow it to now go over there and eat the subordinate animal's food. So that's number one. Same thing goes for toys and treats. Be careful how you distribute them. Give the subordinate animal an opportunity to have those toys and those treats completely and utterly separate. Baby gates don't work. When I say separation in conditions like this, it is a separation of the senses. So come to your senses and do it. Do it. Let them enjoy that by themselves. And then when it's time with you, that can be an incredibly valuable resource. Make sure that time with you is shared, and again, shared while the animals are completely and utterly separated. No sending me any signals. No crescent moon. No tail up all the way to the right side. No way. Don't let that happen. Because every time that happens, it's a bad day for the receiving animal. So guys, that's it. That's the patch model. That's how you go out there and grab something out there that's normally just listed in behavioral ecology type books or any books that just happen to dig deep into animals in general. That's what we have to do. If we're going to be the true guardians of our dogs and guardians of ourselves, because man, I love living with my dogs. I don't have to ever give up any of my darn dogs. I just don't. It's painful. And you die the death of 1,000 cuts when that happens. So what's God's going to require? If we're going to try and overcome that, keep more dogs in our household, keep all of our dogs in the same patch, then we have to make sure the scramble effect doesn't happen. We have to make sure, more importantly, interference effect does not happen as well. Ask the question, what would you do, dog, if I wasn't here starting tomorrow and that door's wide open? If you can answer back, well, I'm hanging out here till the food runs out, then that's a dog that you can keep. If you have to answer that otherwise, then I need you to make the difficult decision and try and find another home for that dog. One of them, at least. And if not, do what I just told you to do. All right, guys, the patch effect. Keep it in your brain, right up here underneath this patch that you have right up here, no matter how short. Mine's a little bit shorter than what it used to be. Feeling good. It's summertime. It's probably the shortest my hair's been in a long time. Keep it underneath that patch. Apply it on your everyday life. You got any questions for me, send them to me, Bryan with a Y at tamingthewild.com. Just drop them anywhere. Someone will give them to me. Even if I don't find them, someone will unearth them. Got a lot of dogs that dig around here. They'll unearth them for me. And if you found this information beneficial, please share it. Share it with those that can use it, as always. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. The Patch Effect.